and tourism is one of the largest industries in India. Today, we have the founder and CEO of Offbeat Travels, Vandana Vijay, joining us. Welcome to the show, Vandana. You
Hi.
offer personalized holiday experiences, weekend getaways, and family vacations. But what really is your USP?
Hi. Thank you so much for inviting me. Offbeat Tracks is an experience-based travel company which focuses on experience-rich travel. I personally believe that travel is the greatest teacher. There are so many lessons that you can learn via travel, which are absolutely not possible to attain through a classroom or any conventional mode of teaching. When you push yourself out of your comfort zone and go to a foreign destination or a destination which is just away from what you have seen, you get to learn and see new cultures, new traditions, new landscapes, new people, and there's so much you can learn from that. So that's essentially what Offbeat Tracks is about. But to be a little more technical, we are a company which focuses on experience-based travel with a focus on sustainable development. Now, here is where we are a company with a difference. As a company, we have identified 3 UN Sustainable Developmental Goals. And each one of our trips, which you take with us, you are fulfilling one of these sustainable developmental goals. I can tell you more about that during the course of our conversation.
That's wonderful, Vandana. So, what are the destinations that you currently cover, and what are the unique experiences that you offer in each of these destinations?
Offbeat Tracks launched with the Himalayas, primarily because I personally love the Himalayas and I have a deep found love for the Himalayan communities. So when we launched with Ladakh and Kashmir, Sikkim, Bhutan, and the Northeast. Today we are across India, and internationally we do Turkey, we do Sri Lanka, we do Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia. We were supposed to launch Central Asia this year, but then the pandemic had different plans for us. So we've taken a slight halt. Now, what experiences we have? We, as a company, heavily focus on local interactions. So, when you travel, I'd like to componentize travel into different sections. Number one is your mode of transport. Usually, people look at getting to a destination by a flight, and then you're doing your local sightseeing with a taxi. We say, let's be a little more environmentally conscious here. So we offer our guests bicycling tours, or you could do a heritage walk. So instead of sitting in the taxi and going with the driver from place A to place B, we say, why don't we do this on a bicycle? So you'll have a bicycle guide with you, and everyone will be forming a little group and cycling around. Then stay. Uh, Stay is a very, very big component of how Offbeat Tracks is different. Usually when you stay in the same hotel room, the 4 walls of the hotel room are the same no matter where you go, be it Goa, be it Ladakh, be it Bhutan, or be it anywhere in the world. You can make a difference to this. We encourage our guests to stay in homestays run by local families or boutique properties. So, in Ladakh, you'll stay in a traditional Ladakhi cottage by a Ladakhi family. Or in Bhutan, you'll stay in a Bhutanese homestay. Some of our hosts are very, very interesting people. For example, one of our hosts in Bhutan, her father was the first judge of the country, or some of them were the first bureaucrats. So imagine the interesting conversations you'll have with your homestay hosts, while you are staying there. Then food. I am personally a big foodie. I absolutely love food. And I tell all my guests, when you're traveling, please ditch the biryani or the butter chicken and try the local food. So, you sit down with the local host family, have a traditional sit down meal, native food. So have hot thupka and momos with maybe a Ladakhi family. In Nagaland, you can have the local Naga cuisine, or in Turkey, you can have some baklava. Try out the local food and flavors. And last but definitely not the least is the experiences. Now, when you're doing your sightseeing, we give you a sightseeing with an added layer. For example, if you're going to a monastery, everyone visits the monastery. We say, why don't you have a personal meditation session with a monk at the monastery? Or when you are going and visiting a village, we buy so many souvenirs, right? We'll buy, some place has famous handicrafts like shawls or woodwork. We say, why don't you have a personal experience where you go and meet the artisan and you sit down and see how a shawl is woven, or how you can, in Nagaland, we have this experience where our guests make their own bamboo mugs as souvenirs, sitting with a local artisan. So every experience in your travel has a takeaway.
That's really interesting. And what's more interesting is the way you explain it. It talks about the kind of experiential learning, travel learning that you have had personally. I should have asked you this question earlier, but when did you really start Offbeat Tracks, and what is the kind of research that went into this? How did you kind of finalize on the destinations that you have for your clients, and what went into the research of all of it? How did you tie up with the local communities?
So I think owe a lot of this to my upbringing. I am an army officer's daughter, so owing to that, I grew up all over the country. So I was very fortunate to have traveled and seen how beautifully diverse our nation is. In fact, I say I'm a very, very proud Indian, and all of us must be absolutely proud of this fact that we are one of the very few nations in the world that boast of so much diversity. You travel a couple of 100 kilometers north, east, west, south, you're exposed to new culture in terms of food, dialect, costume, customs, even landscape. We've got the highest mountains in the world, to the oceans, to the desert, to the densest jungles. You would name a landscape and we have this. But the turning point for me, most importantly, was back in 2014. I was working with Facebook back then, and I took 2 years or 2 months off from work, and I went to volunteer with a non-profit in Ladakh. It was during this stint, this was May, Ladakh was still very cold. We trekked to remote villages up in the mountains, villages which were totally cut off from civilization. Water would be problem, electricity would be a problem. And I figured how beautiful and pristine all these villages are. And I said, I really need to do something which can make an impact to the lives of people living in these remote mountain regions. And somehow the idea struck me that, we can use tourism as a model to bring about development to these remote mountain communities in a sustainable manner. And hence the whole idea of Offbeat Tracks came to be. I finally decided to quit my corporate job in 2016 and then started the company.
And how did you really tie up with all these local communities? How did you convince them to come on board?
It's actually been a long task. I have personally been to a lot of places. So when I launched with Ladakh, Sikkim, and Bhutan. I had been to these destinations. I had tied up with local homestay owners, experience providers, taxi drivers, everybody. And then I started working on my network and telling them that this is what I want, this is what I want to do, and I would love to partner and collaborate with you. So to begin with, it was a lot of me going to all these destinations, understanding the terrain, because when I talk to my guests, I'm not someone who just has bookish knowledge. I have actually been to these destinations. There is actual definite boots on ground experience that I have from all these destinations before we launch them onto our platform.
Wonderful. So tell me, Vandana, now you don't have a staff of your own in all these places, and you've tied up with local communities to provide this kind of an experiential travel experiences to your customers. How do you ensure professionalism there?
It's a little tricky, and we have burnt our fingers a lot. So initially, what I thought is we'll have the model as very centralized. So we had all operations based out of Hyderabad, and we said we will be foreseeing all of it. Like the whole seamless operations of the tours would be happening from Hyderabad. But if you look at the destinations I operate out of, they're politically sensitive and environmentally also very sensitive. For example, there could be a landslide suddenly happening in any of these destinations. Or back in 2016, Bagdogra and West Bengal had this whole Gorkha land agitation. So there were indefinite bans. Bagdogra is our nodal point for sending our guests to Sikkim and Bhutan. And so these are overnight bans which happen. And at that point of time, I decided that the model has to be decentralized. So we have reliable partners in every destination, and they vary. It could be someone like an NGO whom we partner with in Ladakh, to homestay hosts whom we partner with in Bhutan, or village community heads whom we partner with in Nagaland. But these are tried, tested, and verified partners whom we have had a prolonged working relationship with, whom we partner, and they form our central points of contact. So as a guest, when you're traveling, you know that there is a local point of contact you can reach out to who can handhold you and help you whenever the need may arise.
So that really is a much more reliable business model.
Absolutely.
Tell me, Vanna, you were taking you back. Your projects, you said, are set out to promote sustainable and responsible travel in alignment with the sustainable developmental goals set out by the UN. How do you realize your goals?
So we as a company have identified 3 goals from the UN SDG, and each one of our trips or trips our guests take with us fulfill them. One is clean energy. So keeping that in mind, I run these expeditions in Ladakh wherein we take groups of trekkers with us to remote villages that are off the grid. This may be of news to a lot of our viewers here that even to this date, they are remote villages in the Himalayas, in the Trans Himalayas, that are completely cut off in terms of electricity. You know, the government says that we have villages completely electrified, but there are these smaller hamlets which are very, very remote, very far from the main village, that have got neglected in the larger scheme of things. So what we do is I lead these trekking expeditions wherein we go to these remote villages, stay in with the village, developing the mountain homestay network, and solar electrify these homes. Thereby, we are achieving our goal of responsible and clean energy. We did an expedition in 2017 wherein we solar electrified 10 homes and a monastery at a village which was about 3 hours away from Leh, and a 2-hour trek uphill. The other thing is responsible consumption and production. So what we do that way is we are trying to create a network of micro entrepreneurs in rural regions. How we do that is you can probably stay with a homestay host, right? So the host is getting an additional source of income. Every service provider there can essentially become an experience provider. For example, you can go with a farmer in Nagaland and spend a day understanding what farming is like. You're helping him earn an additional source of income. Or you can go with the local artisan who's a shawl weaver or a bamboo basket weaver. And what they teach you is a unique novelty experience that they have there. And we have packaged them and curated them into unique experiences. Therefore, there is responsible consumption and production. Then we also provide people with the means of decent work and economic growth. Now, we've all heard this, that Uttarakhand especially has this concept of ghost villages. What happens is all the youth, because of lack of employment, leave the villages and come to urban areas for economic growth and employment. Thereby, it leaves the old only in the villages, hence the term ghost villages. The disadvantage of this is that it puts a huge pressure on our urban centers to deal with this influx of population. I personally feel that travel and tourism can be a great way via which we can solve for this. Rural tourism, ecotourism, these are all trends which are upcoming. Thereby creating a network of homestays in these mountain villages, engaging with the local villagers to be guides or service providers and so on, you can create employment for people in the village and not have them migrate into the cities. So whenever a guest travels with Offbeat Tracks, you're either staying at a homestay, you're either doing an expedition with us where you're electrifying a village, or you are doing a simple experience, which would be as simple as having a meal with a local family, to learning how to weave your own basket and shawl, or doing a trek up in the mountains. You are helping the local community by providing them with an additional source of income.
That's really wonderful. Vanna, let's talk about the new, fast becoming emerging trends in the travel industry in the COVID scenario, especially.
So COVID has been a big hit, and hospitality and tourism is one of the worst hit industries. And people say it's going to be a long road ahead to recovery. Some things which have come out of it, because I think there's this very famous quote which says that the need to travel is an innate human desire, right from evolution of mankind. If you look at it, right from when we were monkeys and apes, where we were swinging on treetops, and the curiosity to come to ground, that need to travel and explore will never die. And we have noticed that on how the industry has evolved itself post-COVID. Today, as all of us are working remotely, all of us have realized that all we need to work with is our laptops and a good internet connection, and we can work out of anywhere. And we at Offbeat Tracks are very proud to be one of these very few companies in the country to have launched the concept of workations. So you're working and vacationing together. Uh, what we essentially do is we have tied up with a network of boutique properties, which could be homestays, cabins and cottages in scenic locations, mostly across the Himalayas. And the main USP is these people have active, good working internet connections. And you go there, rent a room or a cottage for a couple of weeks to a month. You have flexibility of having your own private kitchen if you want to cook, or you can stay in a homestay and have a caretaker take care of you and all your needs. And you work during the week and vacation during the weekends. Manali recently opened up on 1st of October, and we have had a lot of guests from Hyderabad book vacations with us. So this long weekend, our guests reached Manali. They went river rafting one day. They went fishing the following day. They've done a little bit of trekking, and now they're working during the week. And every weekend, they've got these nice activities which are lined up for them. So, you get to enjoy the mountains, you get to work as well as vacation.
I guess people have had enough and they now want to go back to the normal life. And especially they want to travel, go out of their homes.
Absolutely.
How do you ensure a COVID safe environment for your clients?
Good question. And I'm glad you brought this up. A couple of things which we have kept very much in mind is I am not working with chain hotels. We very intentionally have tied up with boutique homestays or niche properties which do not have more than 3 or 4 rooms at the most. So the level of interpersonal interaction is very different. A lot of state governments have now kind of done away with the COVID negative certificate, but we kind of tell our guests to get a basic negative COVID certificate with them when they are traveling, which kind of puts the hosts in the village community also at ease, whom they're going to be hosting. Taxis, we have designated taxi service providers whom we are tying up with. So these are well sanitized vehicles with known and trusted drivers who will be ferrying our guests from the closest airport to the destination. Coming to the properties, the property, you will probably be the only family or another family staying at that property along with the host. So you're not interacting with a lot of people. You're very, isolated and in silo. In a lot of cases, if it's a family, we give you an entire cottage to yourself. So you'll just probably have a caretaker come and help you when required, but you're still isolated. Hence, you're not interacting with a lot of people. If you look at the experiences and activities also we are providing, they're things which we are encouraging our guests to do in open spaces and not something in close contact. I'll not probably give you a visit to the local museum or a temple or a monastery or something, but doing things which are more out in the open. So something like trekking or doing river rafting where equipment is sanitized and you are only your group with the guide who will be in a particular raft. So we have selected and handpicked activities and experiences wherein we can maintain the COVID safety guidelines and protocols.
So yeah, that's actually one of the most commonly asked questions when it comes to travel, and I hope it really answers this question for a lot of your guests. Vandana, you had a decent job at Facebook. What really made you switch to you having your own business?
It was a great job, and I'm so grateful to have worked with a company like Facebook, where I got to interact with some of the best brains in the world. And I owe a lot to Facebook to have given me the confidence and skill to be where I am today. But there was always a longing in me that I need to work for remote communities and village communities. And as I told you, the passion was always the mountains and the Himalayas. And I think just that, internship session, which I volunteered for in Ladakh with the nonprofit in 2014, was the turning point for me, where I realized that these are the communities I need to work for and provide direct impact to them. And I guess from then onwards, it was just a matter of time where I kind of had to figure out an idea on how I can actually work with them. And I feel I'm very lucky I have been able to make my passion my profession. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, true. So what would be your message to all the aspiring entrepreneurs who have a very nice, a corporate job and now looking at, shifting to business? What should they not do, certainly?
It's not easy. I think the biggest hit which I took, and a lot of us entrepreneurs across the board would say, is the financial security. When you are at a corporate job, you're very used to a handsome paycheck. There's a certain amount of money which comes in credited to you, to your account every month. get used to that uncertainty becoming the norm. Get used to a lot of rejection. You'd get 9 out of 10 times it's a no, but 1 time is a yes. And be very, very passionate about your idea and have complete faith in your idea. You're going to have a lot of critics along the way, you know. Especially when you're building up your idea, people are going to go like, oh, this is not going to work, you know, what is this idea, and doesn't have scope and all of that. But you need to believe in your idea being 100% what it is. You need to believe in your goal, and realize that it's a long journey. There are going to be a lot of stumbling and failing, stumbling blocks across the journey. So celebrate every success, no matter how small it is. What happens is, a lot of times we tend to look at that large goal and we forget to celebrate those small wins that happen during the course of the journey. I think it's very important to celebrate every little win, because that's what's going to keep you motivated. And take every day as it comes, and keep chipping away.
Thank you so much, Vandana, for joining us here tonight. We wish you the very best.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.